No one enjoys being on the receiving end of a business that manipulates or pushes you into buying something. Good business is about relationships where you are authentic, engage, and build trust. Today's guest is Scott Stratten. Scott is an author, podcast host, and an award-winning keynote speaker. He is known for his energy, passion, knowledge, humor, and his man bun. His live and virtual presentations bring UnMarketing to life, energizing attendees and creating experiences audience will remember and learn from. Before founding UnMarketing, Scott managed brands in Toronto and went to school for human resources, was an HR generalist at Goodwill Toronto, and the national sales training manager for Polyair Kantar, before returning to Sheridan College to become a business professor. I'm your host, Chris Parker, and this is the Easy Pray Podcast. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray Podcast today.
Chris, I always, you go on a podcast and you're like, oh, I'm happy to be here. I'm actually happy to be here. I actually really am. And shout out to you, first of all, for what's my IP address.com. It's just like, I saw that on the list about talking about the show. And I'm like, this guy, I need to hang out with him right now. So thank you for having me on the show.
That is so incredibly kind of you. I appreciate that. So I've been a fan of yours along with my wife. And I just love the concept of your authentic marketing. Can you kind of talk about how you got involved in marketing and what's the backstory?
Well, shout out to your wife, Jacinta. Thank you so much. I appreciate all fans. It's just so weird to have any, first of all, because I'm a guy with a beard and a man bun that yells a lot. So it's really nice. UnMarketing, the actual concept started out of frustration, like most things in my life. And you just get so bent out of shape about stuff. You're like, okay, screw it. I'll do it. And you just start doing it. And it actually came about where, so I was one of my two corporate jobs that I had before realizing I'm just not going to make it in the corporate world working for somebody. I do believe the word entrepreneur is Latin for bad employee. And that was me to a T. And so for the 4 years I lasted, 2 years in downtown Toronto in HR, if you can believe that. And then 2 years as a national sales training manager. And I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap. And I'll repeat that for the listeners that didn't catch that. I flew around this continent training people how to sell air. So I learned a few things doing that. But one of the things
pops, you can roll around in it.
Let me tell you, the kids were all happy with Dad bringing home bubble wrap. I'm telling you, it got old real quick for me. But so one of the things I had learned, so I worked with the salespeople, not only our salespeople, but it was mostly our distributors' salespeople. And so we sold into distribution, and then the distributors would sell outside of that to the end user and the businesses. And I would be meeting with people and stuff. And then I actually met one of my friends in their office. I was doing a training sessions near them, and I sat down with them. And we were just, shooting the breeze, doing the thing you do. And his phone rings, and he picks it up, and it was a cold call. And he just berates the person on the other end of the line, just saying, like, you're wasting my time is valuable. One of those things. We all feel this outrage sometimes if we're interrupted. And so anyways, he hangs up the phone, and we both kind of talk back and forth about how ridiculous it is to be cold calling, just random offices at that time. And this was in, 2000, 2002 or so. And then he's like, okay, Scott, I gotta go. I gotta go do my calls for the day. And I'm like, Jeff, what are you talking about? Like, we just talked about how lame this was in that situation as a business development tool. And he's like, yeah, but I sell something people need. I'm like, and this is this hypocritical kind of sales and marketing. And I said, look, there's got to be a better way, because all I was seeing was this buy or goodbye mentality in business, right? This kind of snapping necks and cashing checks. And so you can go to the Catalina wine mixer, at the end of the year for your sales incentive. And it was just all about this and this alpha kind of thing and, stepping over people. And I'm not a cheesy person, but I really believe that we don't have to take a ladder to success, one rung, one person. I think we can take an elevator to success together. I really think we can. And I thought people do business with people they know, like, and trust. That's what I had gathered in the previous 20 or so years of my life learning things. And I'm like, why aren't we doing that then? And so I set out to prove that you could build a business and businesses by building relationships and positioning yourself as an authority in front of your target market. So when they have a need for your product or service, they choose you. That's burned into my brain, Chris. It sounded like a line that is burned into my brain, but what that is. And I went out and set out on that journey to kind of try to prove that. And I thought when we started doing UnMarketing, and then when we got the book deal and UnMarketing came out, that it would be entrepreneurs that resonated with it. And because I wasn't kind to corporate marketing and things in the book, and nor am I still not. I'm still not kind about it. And it blew up. I mean, corporations bought it, entrepreneurs bought it, schools put it in their curriculums. And I'm like, this is what's telling you something, that not every tactic works for every person. When we say do this or best practice or do that, you're not taking into the account the human factor.
Yeah.
Like, I know people that would the stories that people would come to me with, that would come to me for the past decade or so after the book came out, people would vomit before doing sales calls. People would have panic attacks. People would do this. And I'm just, there's like, in 1982, if you were selling hairbrushes or vacuums, you really had one choice. You're knocking on doors, Tupperware, that type of stuff. I get it. It's knives, you know what I mean? That's the type of thing. But now, a lot of times I just keep learning. It's an excuse. It's like you get a new person in, fresh out of school, and you just send them door knocking. Why? Because it's lazy for you and it's hard for them. But you're like, well, you gotta pound the pavement. You gotta earn your stripes. Yeah. And it's such a bunch of malarkey to me. And I also think cold calling can work in the right industry, in the right place. If you're paving driveways, and you go knock on the neighbor's door to the one you're paving and say, hey, we're already bringing our equipment here in 2 weeks. Do you want a discount? Like that? I'd love that. Window cleaning, awesome. Allison, who's my co-author, my business partner, and luckily for me, my wife, had a nursing bra company. And she went to stores, baby stores, and said, hey, I have a new product. What do you think? Like when it makes sense, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not a be all and end all, nor is it a be most things to me. And so I set out to do that. And I found that my one condition when I went out and I said, I'm going to be me. I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say it with mostly not a filter. Because I'm so passionate about it. I always talk about I'm an angry speaker on stage. It's not anger, it's passion. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. They're afraid to polarize because they're afraid of the part of the market they push away.
Yeah.
And they don't look at the market they attract stronger that way. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. I'm not my own cup of tea half the time, but I know that the people who do hire me, back when I was doing consulting and things like that, they knew what they were going to get and they got it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing now. My business now is just speaking at conferences and stuff. And it never usually happens where I'm done and they're like, well, that wasn't what I expected. Like, you know what you're getting with this man-bunned Gandalf showing up at your event, right? You're going to get somebody who has an edge to them, but speaks the truth. At least according to me. Mm-hmm. And it's worked out so far.
So you told me that there's a story behind the unmarketing.com domain name.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
One of my favorite things about even talking to you right now is I don't get to tell a story a lot, but it's really important as a fellow geek, and especially the one who came up with your brilliant site, you'd really appreciate it. So I went to get unmarketing.com because that was going to be the name of the company. I came up with a name because I thought it would look really good on a book cover, and I think it does. And I went and said, okay, and unmarketing.com. This is back in like 2000. Mm-hmm. And so, especially one of my biggest regrets, I don't live with regrets usually, but I wish I picked up a couple more domain names in like 95, 96, and just kind of sat on them for a while.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for my JPEGs to load of women or something, a girl in a bikini or a wrestler I liked from the 80s or something like that. I'm just like, I could have just registered cars.com and then retired, So I went to get unmarketing.com and it wasn't available. And I'm like, all right. So I registered un-marketing.com. And then I also inquired to the person who had it because it was just an error page. Back then, it wasn't even that we didn't have parked pages back then, right? It was just like, this doesn't exist.
All right, broken.
So I went into the registrar, the information, the registration information, found out who the contact was. Again, much easier back then. And I just emailed the person. I said, hey, this is kind of my company name I'm coming up with, and I would love to buy the domain if you're not using it. And he wrote back and he's like, hey, well, I kind of had some plans for it. One of those things, right?
Everybody has plans.
Everybody's got plans. As a 100+ domain owner myself, I got plans. And so I said, but he says, I could probably give it up for $1,000. And I was just coming out of college. He might as well have said $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, thanks anyways. And good luck with whatever you do with it. And I went with un-marketing.com. And so as you can understand, like right now, as you're listening, anytime I was on the radio or a podcast, I would have to say hyphen, but not the word hyphen, a dash, but not DASH, like an actual line. Like it was such a pain. It was such a pain. Anyways, fast forward 5 years. 5 years. It's Christmas time. It's a week before Christmas, I think. I get an email from GoDaddy. And it just says, your domain has been transferred.
Oh, wow.
And I look, and I've been given ownership of UnMarketing.com. And I'm like, well, what is happening? And then I check my email, and there's an email from the guy who owned it afterwards. Mm-hmm. And he says, hey, Scott, I could have sold this domain recently for 5 figures. And I realized that the only reason this domain is worth anything is because of the brand you've built in the past 5 years on it. Merry Christmas.
Wow.
And he just handed me the domain. And that was something I was just like, it's like the Christmas Story came on the TV and snow started falling. I'm like, Santa's real. It was such a wonderful way. And for me, people would say during that 5-year period, they're like, well, why don't you go and try to make a claim on it or something? I'm like, no. They registered. That's theirs. I never trademarked UnMarketing. I don't plan on trademarking UnMarketing because that becomes part of your job.
Yeah.
Enforcement. And I'm just like, I'm not the first person to come up. And it's hilarious when people will say, well, that, T-Mobile came out and they're the uncarrier. And they're like, well, you should go. And I'm like, I don't own I don't own the 2 letters for it. I've made a brand around it.
Yeah.
And that was just a testament to saying, look, that's how I do business, which is like, that's right. That's, you do a handshake, you do what's right. And I'm just like, all power to you. And I was so floored. That I was given it by him. And that also gave me that indication that, it's just the right thing to do. And if I never got it, it's still the right thing to do.
Yeah. So do you think
make a better offer once you have more money?
Yeah. Do you think he gave it to you because of what you've done with the brand, because of the principles that you teach?
I think that had a lot to do with it. Also, it was the fact that he mentioned in the email was the value that was created because of the brand I had built, but also I never went after him. Mm-hmm. He said, you never tried to claim it. You never did a trademark type of thing or any of that type of stuff. And he's like, he's his line. And please, I apologize for the French I'm about to use, but he says, I wish you were more of an asshole. That was the ending of his email, because then he could have sold it in good conscience. That's what he said. And I'm like, the one time I'm not, that's good. That makes me so happy.
So you're passionate about marketing in a way that resonates with people and connects with people.
Yeah.
What are companies doing to kind of not do that? What are they doing to manipulate and we're just going to try to force the sale?
Well, you just used the word right there. It's manipulate. And it's funny because, we've put out 6 books and the 3 uns are unmarketing, unselling, and unbranding. They're all the same thing. I'm not passionate about marketing, honestly. I'm passionate about people. Mm-hmm. And there's just different ways to go about those. And marketing happens to be the thing I have a real good knack for. And I just found that I don't think ethics are a renewable resource. I don't think you get to re-up every quarter, depending on if you hit your goal or not. I think that when we compromise things like that, not only do we compromise our own ethics, if we're in a leader position, we compromise our team's ethics. And that lasts for a very long time because now you've compromised your team. Mm-hmm. And that's not a leader. I don't think a leader is a title. I think leadership is a verb. I think that's a John Maxwell line, but it's a fantastic, exactly how I feel. And that's it though. You'll never forget that. You'll never forget. And the problem is that's the issue is in marketing, if you lie, usually nobody even knows.
Yeah.
In sales, if you lie, they find out 5 years later and you're Enron. You know what I mean? So marketing lies don't usually come up to catch you, except we did catch a brand in a lie and they got in trouble for it so years ago. And it's on the UnMarketing blog, un-marketing.com blog. But we had one where I woke up and it was, I guess, 6 years ago, and I'm lying in bed. And I do what geeks do back then. And I just kind of opened up the App Store. I just want to see what was trending. My whole world's about viral and, why things trend and why people jump into things. And I saw that. So I'm in Canada and our big main legacy phone provider here is Bell. And I saw that their app in the App Store was like number 1 or 2 which was weird because this was the Farmville end and the Candy Crush boom. And I'm like, how is this beating these addictive games? I can't stand those games, and I know why they work, and they're brilliant. So, but I was defending them. I'm like, how does a Bell mobile app take the top? So I start looking at it, and I'm reading it. I'm like, it has 4.5 stars with like 100 reviews. Now, Chris, I know you know this. You have to know, right? Just nobody likes the only time you leave a review for an app is when you hate it. Usually, it's like Yelp. You know, you don't go to a restaurant and say I ordered a burger. It's not like it's like Mitch Hedberg, right? Bought a donut, you ate the donut. Don't need a receipt. Don't need a review, type of thing. And so I'm like, there's no way, because the app lets you look at your bill. And I've traveled the world speaking, and the only thing that I know that bonds humans across this planet is they hate their banks, their phone companies, and their airlines. Like that is the bonding thing across every person I've ever met around the world. And so I started reading the reviews. I'm like, why? They're so glowing. Like this, Canada has one of the highest data fee rates for mobile in the civilized world. Though nobody's happy with it. So I knew this was wrong. So I started reading the reviews. I'm like, these sound like marketers, right? Mm-hmm. Marketers don't talk in like human language.
Yeah.
They talk in marketing speak. So I said, no. So I cross-referenced these reviews. I found them on LinkedIn, and they're all Bell employees.
Oh.
So I, like a good Canadian, I just let it go. I'm kidding. I wrote a blog post, and I called it "For Whom the Bell Mobility Tolls," which is the greatest headline I have ever come up with in my life.
That is awesome.
I will never beat it. And I just wrote and said, look, because it's astroturfing, right? It's you can't do that, because I believe that, so I put the blog post out there. It went nuts. It went viral around the world. And the Canadian Competition Bureau launched an investigation. And I did it all, by the way, without wearing pants. Like I was in bed, and it was amazing. So this goes up. It blows up. A year later, I'm on the train going into Toronto, heading to a Blue Jays game, which actually ended up being the 2015 playoffs, where the famous Batista bat flip game against the Rangers. So I'm on the way to that one. My phone rings. It's a reporter. And I love that reporters usually call me when stuff hits the fan. Yeah, it's just the brand I've come up with. And they're like, hey, Scott, we're wondering if you have a comment on the Competition Bureau's ruling. And I was surprised by this, because I don't know if it's the same where you are, but when our Competition Bureau launches an investigation, that's usually the end of the investigation. And they came out and they made a ruling. And there was 2 things that came out with. One, they had to send all employees for ethics training. And I'm like, do they need a speaker? Because I could do it. And 2, they were fined $1.25 million. And then the first comment I got on the blog post, the first one, was 2 words. All it says is, who cares? It's just an app. Who cares? And I said, I do. I think the internet is as we say, the World Wide Web back in the day. Yeah. I think that's a web of spun of trust. I really believe that. My first time getting on the internet in 1995, I saw it and I just said, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then I printed out every single page I looked at, because I thought the internet would be turned off. And I still have the binder, by the way. Still have, including the 242 pages of the Monty Python Holy Grail script I printed out during Project Week in college. And I tied up the printer for a long time and I got in trouble, but worth it. I would do it again. I think that the only way the internet works for us in a good way is if it's trusted. We have to trust it. Yelp reviews only work if we trust them. Business reviews only work if we trust them.
Yeah.
And the one thing that really ticked me off about this whole Bell thing was that they didn't need to do it. You don't have a choice. They have like almost a dual monopoly with them and Rogers in Canada nationally. Say, look, if I'm a Bell customer, I'm going to download the app anyways. But they wanted to do some vanity metric, something that they wanted to see, some team, and their whole team got in it. Now all their names are attached to it. And it's not renewable. You cannot. And I really believe right now, too, that people will remember how we behave in a crisis long after it's over.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of notes being taken. There's a lot of receipts being held on to right now. And I am all for this. As Allison has said about me, I've never seen a mutiny I don't want to join. And that is 100% true.
I mean, it's interesting to me that Bell would even, I mean, it makes sense they have an app to check your bill, but like, why did they care?
Because somebody in there wanted to get an award or a bonus. Well, that's another, we can do a whole day talking about marketing awards. Like that's that whole thing too, right? It's just like this.
All those ones you have to pay for?
The ones you have to pay for. I'm just like, dude, but this is like, it doesn't end. And that's why we'd never, like we had our show was called the UnPodcast, the business show for the fed up. We did about, I think 320 episodes. We have 6 years and every week we come out and we just never had a lack of material. We never had a lack of material. Yeah. We never had one show that we said, I think we're out. It's always something. It's always, I know another example that happened. So my world, professional speaking, somebody had said, hey, check out this speaker. Cause I'm like the bouncer for the, it's just like, this guy shouldn't be doing this. And one of these speakers had put in his bio that one of his books was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And I know this person. Mm-hmm. They ain't going to win a Pulitzer if they save the world. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Plus, things like the Pulitzer, things like, any kind of those type of awards that are just like because you helped humanity.
Yeah, Nobel Prize,
the Pulitzer, like those are sacred. And I won't be in the running for any of those. Those are sacred. And so I found out that for $35, you could submit your book for nomination for Pulitzer. Now, you can't call yourself a nominee unless you're on the list, the short list, right? Because anybody can do it.
Yeah.
So I confronted them. I said, hey, I don't see your book on the Pulitzer lists in any of the years. What happened? It's like, oh, yeah, no, my publisher nominated me. Okay. You can't. Okay, so one, you can't put that somewhere. Two, here's the best part. You are going to love this. The book is self-published.
Oh. Wait, you're blaming that on your publisher and it's you.
Who nominated him was himself. And now he no longer claims it because I said, look, you take it off or you're my next topic. I have no time. People are going to be their thing. They're going to be unethical, or maybe it wasn't being unethical. Maybe they thought that's how you do it. Yeah. I doubt it. But that's how you do it. But it's a slap in the face to every war journalist, to every humanitarian, to people who just work their ass off to make the world a better place, to tell the stories that need to be told. And the book was like about YouTube or something. Just brutal. I'm like, no, not on my watch. And because if we don't call people out on this stuff, that's why they do it. Because that comment on my blog post, because who cares?
Yeah,
I do.
I mean, it's interesting. There's so many things lists that we think have value, and that because someone's on these lists that we think, oh, it must be good. I know, like the operating process for New York Times best-selling authors is you just go out and buy a whole bunch of copies of the book yourself.
You gotta go to Result Source and have them do it for you. Yep. Yeah, I know. People that I know in the industry, and they're and New York Times bestseller, and it was bought, and they spent $250,000 on it, and they can walk around and say it. And look, as a business, sure, people are like, well, it's a business decision. You get higher consulting fees. I'm like, I'm not talking about a business. I'm talking about an ethical decision.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's tempting. I wanted to hit the lists with the first couple books. By the book 3, 4, 5, 6, you're just like, I don't care at that point. But you get to I get it. You play the game. I have a bio with a lot of accolades in it, right? The New York Times, this, and I wasn't New York Times. But I've been in New York Times multiple times. That's the real time when you should have a comment saying, who cares? Because I get bored when I hear my bio at an event. But we do back in this, when I started my career and knowing what I wanted to do, you did things for the bio. That's what we'd say. Do it for the bio, right? You take the client, Walmart wants me to speak at their head office, but they only have a third of my rate. Do it for the bio.
Yeah.
Right. Go to Bentonville, Arkansas and do it for the bio. Right. And that's where that type of stuff. So I understand it, but it has to be true.
Yeah.
To me, there has to be that truth, because then nobody wins. You might win in the short term, but word gets out. It's a small world.
Yeah.
especially when I'm spreading the word.
When you're yelling from the rooftops.
I will, and I won't stop. it's something that's ingrained in me. It's just like, I really look at one of the striving things for like UnMarketing and the business stuff was like, I hate bullies. And a lot of times bullying in business is popular. Bullying in business is admired. The Jack Welch way of doing things, the chainsaw, and just cut it all down, get your bonus and go away. Cool. That's not the world I want to live in.
Yeah. It doesn't doesn't raise every boat.
I don't understand the endless pursuit of more, no matter what. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very privileged. I'm very lucky of where I am in my career now, but I've never had this thing of growth. For me, it was about passion. It was about, first it's about providing.
Yeah.
If you get past that point, it's about passion. It's about doing what I've wanted to do, the speaking thing since I was 12. I'm so lucky to be living my dream and realize I'm in it when I'm in it. But I had a dinner with Alice and I were in Germany for an event. How cool is that? Just saying that, by the way. I got to go to Germany to be paid to speak. It blows my mind. And we were sitting with another speaker friend and we were having schnitzel and a stein of beer outside because you've got to do that. And I had just hit a kind of one of those rungs in speaking, right, in revenue. And for the year, and he's like, awesome, what's next? And he puts his hand up with that chart climbing up. And I just grabbed his hand and I flatlined his arm. And I said, I just want to do this for the rest of my working life. He's like, well, but you want to be, I'm like, I don't have that in me. Because when you just have the endless pursuit of more, you never see what you have today.
Yeah. You're always focused on how do I make tomorrow better as opposed to how do I enjoy today?
I get a house, I can get a bigger house. I get a car, I can get a newer car. I got now mind you, phone, I just got a newer iPhone, so I can't claim I'm good at that. But still, you take your wins and your losses.
We always joke about we don't want a bigger house. That just means more cleaning.
It just means more cleaning. Exactly. And we're on the other end of it for us too. Like we're getting to the point where the kids are all starting to, like, we have now 15 through 24 and they're all starting to go and do their own thing too. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating to be a parent at this point and during a pandemic and seeing them change and grow. But also that I'm able to be here. Mm-hmm. I've been on the road for most of my life. It's just, I go to the event. That's the one downfall and a plus sometimes, depending on what it is. But like now, especially after this pandemic and everything, it's just changed my brain. I just want to be here. Mm-hmm. And so, I still go do gigs. I still want to do that. I still love that. It's my passion. But when I'm there, before it was a necessary evil. Like the road was necessary for me. I never got stressed about it. I just went and did it. And now I just did the gig and I came home. But now when I go, I want to come home. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a drive saying I want to do this gig, but I want to get home. And it's certainly a change. And I'm very lucky I realized that at the age I am now.
Yeah, it's really fortunate when you can do what you like to do and it supports your family. It's
I know it's combination. Rare. I know it's rare, and that's why I know how lucky I am with that. And I think everything in business is a combination of luck, timing, skill, and effort. And I just think when they all four of them fire, it's beautiful. And when three of them do, you can do well. Yeah. And it's that taking that risk and that belief in myself and that little bit of insanity that all entrepreneurs have and that blind ignorance of that we can do it. And one of my favorite things about entrepreneurs is I really love the series, How I Built This, the NPR series, Guy Raz, the podcast series, and he talks to all these founders, the founder of Five Guys and Spanx and all this stuff. And almost the common thread through all of them was, I'm so glad I don't know then what I know now because I never would have started the business. Yeah. Right. That little bit of that kind of naive kind of just, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do this type of thing. I like that. That's a wonderful motivation thing for me because I still don't know what I'm doing.
I like the stories where people kind of, they weren't planning on building an empire. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, I want to own a chain of 5,000 restaurants. That's my goal in life. I was like, no, I just want to make a good burger.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a good burger with good ingredients. And now we have 4,000 locations. I don't know what happened. Exactly. And for me, it's been interesting because there's been a lot of opportunities for me. When you build a following, when you build a brand like this one, there becomes these opportunities for it. And I've always weighed it out by saying, how much work is this going to be? How much work do I tie myself into long term? And what do I want to do? And I used to consult and speak. And it's by the way, it's the best way to get clients is to be up in front of them in an audience, as an audience. But I couldn't serve both audiences well.
Yeah.
Right. You're consulting and you're on the road. That's never, there's always distractions. It's always a problem. Plus, I didn't like it. And so I was able to decide I just wanted to do speaking. And I became that. And I'm one of the few people that only does keynotes at conferences, and that's it. I don't do training, workshops, breakout, consulting. I don't have an agency. And that is very fortunate to be able to do that. And part of that is just because I can speak. And I don't get nervous, and I've never gotten nervous. And that's not a skill. That's just a missing synapse in my brain. I've just never, that's how I got through college. That's how I got through high school, was my ability to get up in front of a room and BS. And I'm very lucky with that. If you have a skill, most people don't, and you get paid for it. So that's the meaning of life for me.
I have one of those skills where 5 minutes before I'm up in front of an audience of 4 people, that I'm just utterly nauseous and ready to say, like, why in the world am I talking to these 4 people?
Yeah, I got to be, I was a college professor at my college here, Sheridan College, and for 7 years. And one of the classes I got to teach a few times was communications, and part of that was presenting. And I was given the curriculum and the rubric and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I don't even know what this stuff is. Like, am I supposed to look at this stuff? And they're like, yeah, here's what you're supposed to teach. And I'm like, I read this and like teach them how to write a memo. I'm like, I don't even think people write memos anymore. Like, forget it. And I'm just like this. And they had to do, the whole thing about the class was they had to do 2 presentations, one near the start and one near the end of the semester. And of course, everybody was just peeing their pants, right? They just like, no, they didn't want to do it. And the whole thing was, here is a list of topics in business, and they can present on one of those topics. Like, I'm serious, like memo writing, like all like, and I just looked at it and I just went, absolutely not. And I looked at this class of 36 young adults, and I said, all right, you have to do 2 presentations this semester. And everybody's like, oh no. And I said, I promise you'll do great. And they're like, I don't know. What do you mean? I said, I'm only going to grade you on one thing. If your second presentation is better than your first. And then I made everybody go up and do a talk on a topic of anything they wanted. You love Xbox? Tell me about it. You love cars? Rock it. You love a certain movie? You love anime? Talk about it. And then we talked about every presentation. Every student gave good and, what to improve and what they liked. And every single second presentation was better. And then I got in trouble from the school. That's not the curriculum. I'm just like, no, I don't care. I almost got fired every semester teaching. By the first thing I was told by the person who brought me in, she's like, and I said, so what's the goal? She said, like, just don't rock the boat.
Yeah, that's semester, so not you.
Every semester, I'm just like, do these things even have paddles? Like, just like back and forth, because it was about the students for me. And it was about because they're the customer. And, that was the whole thing. I've gone off on a tangent here, but I don't have anybody to talk to down in this basement. It's just my treadmill. So off I go again.
Tangents are good. To me, the tangents are always the fun part of any conversation. Is the little roads that you go down where the insight, the synapses are firing.
But this is why I have slides in my presentation to keep me on topic. Otherwise, I would get to slide 2 and I'd be 40 minutes in. I'd be like, oh no, I got to cover some other things here today.
It's almost been more of a discussion about business ethics than anything else.
Yeah, but that's what I love. I really think that when I taught HR, especially when I taught like employment law, I said, you have to understand there's a difference between what's legal and what's right.
Yeah.
And then so our entire discussions that whole semester is based on that point. What's right? What's legal? And that's what I view business as. Can you? Sure. Should you? That's the question. That's always the question. We are on this rock flying around this universe together. And you start burning people for whatever that is, for whatever reason that is. It's like people just saying, well, yeah, but it's not personal. It's business, not personal. Everything in business is personal.
It's sure personal to the person that you fired.
Right. It's just a cop-out. You're just letting yourself off the hook. You're changing their life. One of the reasons I got into human resources was I felt that was one of the only positions or departments in a company that could change people's lives. Unfortunately, after I got into HR, I realized their job was pretty much protecting the company.
Yeah.
And so I did not last long at all, under 2 years. And you change people's lives. And I hate, anytime somebody says that, that's a red flag for me. It's a red flag for me. Maybe they've been taught that. I mean, it's true or whatever. Everything is personal. I don't care about companies. I don't care about brands. I care about the people there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all personal. And we've got such a way to deal with leadership or people just saying, yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do. Do you though? Did you need to do that? Did you need to do this? Did you need to make sure that everybody had to come back to the office last week at your company because you felt like your kingdom wasn't being properly respected? Like, enough. People call this the great resignation, the great realignment. It's the great realization, right? It's the great reassessment. It's like, wait a second. What am I doing?
And I think a lot of people have that. I like that you're calling it the reassessment is much better than the resignation, that people are realizing this job was really stressful. Like, I don't need to work that hard.
Yeah.
Like they've realized, like, I like spending time with my family. Like, there's benefits to this. I want to spend more time with my family. Or
spending time doing whatever it is you want to do. And there's this, thank you. I am a pro at doing nothing. I love nothing. Allison said to me a few weeks ago, she's like, you know what? I've never actually heard you say you're bored. I don't get bored. I'm just content with what I'm doing, what I'm playing. I can finish this interview right now and go play some Xbox. I got Far Cry 6 and I got some beef with it. I got to keep playing it. And I think that the problem is a lot of companies think they own their employees. And you don't. I always would tell students, but before they graduated, I'd always say, by the way, at a job offer, you're the final decision. You decide to accept it. Never forget that. You are an asset, not overhead. Right? You are what drives the company, and never, because companies will use that, and there's ways to do things well, but most companies it's buy or goodbye for them, and and they can look. You can do whatever you want. These are your companies, your things, but don't have up on your wall you value your employees, they're your number one asset, and then treat them like crap.
Yeah,
it's so hypocritical. It's amazing to me that I had one client back when I was doing consulting. This is back when I had a company called Work Your Life, and it was about enjoying the 5 days of the work week as well as the 2 days on the weekend, because it's so ridiculously opposite, of enjoyment usually. And I had this thing where I would go in and talk, and so I was hired by a company up near the airport in Toronto. It was a distribution company, and I went in and I met with the executives. And obviously it was 6 old white guys. And I sat with them around their fancy, looks like a good $50,000 table. And I sat down. I'm like, all right, gentlemen, give me the scoop. What's going on? They're like, I'm like, so what's the issues right now? And they're like, oh, Scott, we don't have any problems. And you know how I know how a company has problems?
Because they say you have no problems.
Bingo. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And they're just like, our employees are here. And he put the hand in the middle of his face. And he just goes, we want them up here above their head. Like, just keep, make them even better. And I'm like, you got it. So I came up with some stuff. We scheduled with the teams, these lunch and learns, et cetera, et cetera. And I returned for my first session a week or two later. And I walked in, but it wasn't in the fancy boardroom this time. It was in the lunchroom for the staff. And it wasn't as pretty. It was gross. It was just gross. Anyway, I got up there anyways. I had a flip chart. Look at me. I had a flip chart. Got in there. I'm like, all right, so join this. And nothing is landing. Nothing. And like one of the things I do about speaking, you read people's faces and their body language and everything. Nothing's landing. I just stop. I look at everybody. And there's like 9 people in the group. And I'm like, what's wrong? I just stop. Stop the program. What's wrong? And one of the employees put their hand up and said, hey, this is all fine and good, but when you're done today, you get to leave here.
Oh.
And I'm like, Warden, can you buzz me out? Like, it's just like, it felt like a prison. And I said, all right, forget what I was going to say today. I'm going to give you all a piece of paper, 3 pieces of paper each. And I want you to write stop on one, start on another, and continue on the third. And I want you to list all the things the company should stop doing, start doing, and continue doing to ensure that you can not only work here, but thrive. And they start writing ferociously. And then one guy looks up, just freezes, looks up and goes, we don't have to put our names on these, do we? And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm going to take all the things from all the sessions and I'm going to type them up and I'm going to put them as a group. He's like, oh, okay, good. Do you have more paper? And the secret with stop, start, continue with that technique is you're hoping for a little bit of stop, start, and a lot of continue to say how great you're doing, right? So I take everything And I do this with all the groups, and it's the same vibe with every group. And I just get all the stuff and I put them into binders, then you overcharge for the binders, obviously, and you just get the binder. And it was like 25 pages of stop, 20 pages of start, and 1 bullet point for continue.
Ooh.
And the bullet point was continue bringing those hot dogs at the one-time barbecue in the summer for employees. I liked them. And I got back up into the big boardroom, came in with the council of white dudes and handed them all the binders. And they started looking through them. And they're like, rumor has it, employees are saying, was you just did a survey. It's not why we brought you in, Scott. I'm like, just take a look. I said, yeah. And I was brought in being told that you have no problems. It's not the case. So we start reading through them. And the one guy sitting across from me, who was the biggest complaint about every page turn, was more violent. And then he got to the final page and just tore the page out. And he goes, this is bullshit. I think one of two things happened here. And he points his finger right at my face. Either they're lying or you told them to write this stuff. And I'm sitting and I looked at him. I said, or hear me out. There's a third option. This is how they feel. And then the CEO looks and goes, all right, I guess we're done here. Closes the binder. I leave. Oh, by the way, that's the end of the story. There's no good ending to the story. By the way, there's no sudden redemption arc to the story where they realized it. They just went, and oh, by the way, the parting words were, if they didn't like it here, they'd leave. That was the parting shot. Yeah. The great reassessment. 100%.
I wonder how many of those people are still there today.
I hope none. I really do. Employees are assets. People are assets. People are people. And I've been doing this stuff for over 20 years, and it bewilders me from day one till to today. People don't grasp, but not all people, the morons don't grasp treating people well is good. That's the whole sentence.
Yeah.
Not good for profit, not good for company, not good for retention. It's a good, which means better retention, better revenue, better employees. And I've had somebody once say at an event 15 years ago, and they said, show me the numbers. I'm like, and he just blurted it out in the audience. And I live for that stuff. And I'm like, come again? Show me, prove it to me that happier employers are better. And I just looked at him and said, no.
If you can't figure that out on your own, no number is going to prove it.
And if I show you a number, you'll just say something else. You don't want to be proven wrong. You don't be told that people should know their place. And I know what their place is, and it's hopefully not at your workplace. Dude, this stuff gets me fired up, man. I'm telling you, that's why I was so excited to talk to you about stuff like this too. It doesn't get talked about enough. We talk about tactics, but if I give you marketing tactics, and I love split testing and conversions and all that geeky stuff. And I'm like, but if your boss is a prick, that stuff's harder. You got to create. Marketing's about creation too, and creativity. You know what kills creativity? Stress. Well, prove it to me. Really? You sure about that? You ever been stressed and then felt like drawing? Right? You ever been? No, we never. Look, I get stressed. You've got to hustle sometimes. You got to do that. You got to, work a late night or two. But when that's the norm and you say, well, you got to be a team player, get out of here. Well, we're a family environment. No, that's worse. So you're expecting me to do everything for nothing and just keep up and just deal with you no matter what because we're family? It's just like, and they throw out a phrase. They're like, well, the customer's always right. That's not the quote. The customer's always right in matters of taste. Right? It's like we kill these phrases. We kill, it's like blood is thicker than water. Well, it's not the phrase either. It's like blood of the covenant is thicker than water of the womb. Like we just use these phrases, butcher them and say, well, that's see? And now I'm a leader at work. People post on LinkedIn that frickin' wolf photo of the wolf pack and the older ones are in the front and the alphas in the back protecting the herd. And none of it's true. None of it's true. Just go read Who Moved My Cheese. Whatever. Like, it's just, none of it's true. None. It's just a platitude. It's just this, and it doesn't help. It doesn't. We can even disprove what the whole alpha thing in the animal kingdom if you feel like it, but then all the alphas will get mad. So I don't want to start that now, do we?
That's hilarious. Gosh, I don't even know what to ask next.
Well, but look, I really think sometimes, and I really think this is actually an important point as opposed to everything else I've said, is that people, a lot of brands will ask, well, what do we do? How do we become these things or be authentic or this type of stuff? And I just try to use in the example of like, well, we ended up just ripping down our website and totally revamping it. If you went to UnMarketing beforehand, it was Alice and I in our face. And we're like, what's up? And it's all these type of things. And now when you go to unmarketing.com, it's just like 20 statements saying, look, if you don't agree with these things, don't come in the door. Right. And that you don't have to agree with me. Like, it's just my opinion. I'm just making this crap up because this is what I think from experience and wisdom. And wisdom is just time plus mistakes. I'm not better than people. I've just screwed up more. And I'm trying to learn from them.
Well, I think that's the difference, is that we're better when we learn from our mistakes as opposed to, well, I had it and I'm just going to keep plowing through life.
Right. Or we start being, vindictive about the mistake or resentful about it or self-loathing about it. Or we're not infallible. Like that's why when places ask for experience, that's what they're asking. Meaning, have you made mistakes yet? Have you learned from them yet? Okay, good. And you have what's weird kind of dynamic now in the workplace, like over the past few years, that I don't think really was as predominant before. You have a younger generation coming in with better skill sets when it comes to tech, when it comes to, especially marketing is so tech run now and data-based and in the cloud and all that jazz. And it goes around. And what happens is sometimes an older employees can get pushed out of the way. And if they're the supervisor or the manager or something, they're going to do things to make sure they don't get pushed out of the way. Wisdom has a huge value. You can learn the technical side of stuff, but understanding that behind the tech, there's people, and behind the tech of the customer being onboarded, that's a human being onboarded as well. So although we could use a chat bot for this and we could use AI for that, maybe we don't have to all the time. It's not just about scale. Everything can't be about scale. Everything can't be about automation. I love automation. You go sign up for my newsletter, automatic welcome email. But the welcome email asks the person, hey, can I ask what industry you're in? Because it helps us tailor the newsletter. When they reply, it comes to my phone.
Oh, wow.
And half of the reply, I've been using the same welcome email for almost 20 years. And every few days, I get a reply from people saying, and half the replies are, I know this is automated, but... And then I reply back with, automated is the nicest thing I've been called this month. And they're like, holy crap, you replied. And like, that's how we start the connection, right? They've raised their hand to me to say, I believe that what you're saying is something I want to read more of. And I want to return that high five. That's cool. Isn't that just cool? Somebody's like, yeah, I want to learn from you. That's an honor. That's got to be an honor when somebody says, I think you can teach me something. That blows my mind. It's so cool. And that's not even about books or anything else. It's just a newsletter sign up. And I'm an old school newsletter person. I still think it's the best marketing tool possible. And everything else is running around. And I got known because of social media. I can't kill it. I can't rip it. It's because of Twitter. I got a book deal. It was because of that. I got anything on this end of my career. It's not what it's about for me. The gold is still on the list, a good, well-engaged list.
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen email marketing is dead for the last 20 years. Since the day after email marketing started, it's been email marketing is dead. Yeah.
Always beware when those phrases, right? Because it's usually, the death is usually declared by somebody selling the alternative.
Yes, it's always the case.
Yeah. The corner is selling you social media tools. Always. Always.
That is it. Well, gosh, we have cranked up almost an hour now.
Not bad. That's good.
That's awesome. This has been a great conversation. So if people want to find you online, where can they find you? Where can they sign up for your newsletter and have a conversation with you?
Well, you can go to unmarketing.com or un-marketing.com because the hyphen still does redirect to it.
And that's not the word hyphen. It's not the word
it's
dash.
It's not the word hyphen. It's not dash. It's the line, but not the underscore line. It's the dash in the middle. Yeah, if sign up and you'll see the welcome email right from that. And if you reply, it will come to my phone. I promise you. And I will see it. And depending on your reply, I might reply back. If you just say one word and I'm just like, if I wrote back and you just like medical is your field, I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That's nice.
And then I just file it away. But if you give me any more than one sentence, I'm replying back because it's so cool. Still.
That's it. I love that you so much value the connection with people.
What else is there? Honestly, Chris, to wrap this up, right? What else is there? If we don't connect, at least even at an arm's length, like I'm after this pandemic or during this still right now, I don't really want to hang out with most people, in general. And I'm happy where I am. I'm happy at home. But emailing back and forth with people and just have somebody from Albuquerque just signed up and they own a franchise of 4 restaurants or something there. And I'm just like, how else could we ever do that?
Yeah.
Cool. So cool.
That is awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Again, like I said in the beginning, the pleasure was truly all mine. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Easy Pray podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and leave a review at easypray.com/review. Notes and a transcript of this episode with Scott Stratten can be found at easypray.com/101.